My sister accidentally called me while my manager was taking credit for my project. She's just good at making slides look pretty, he said. I didn't confront him. I just submitted it elsewhere. I'm Marissa. I'm 42, divorced for 4 years, no kids, just a dog named Otto who snores louder than any man I've ever dated. I live in Evanston, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. I commute downtown to a mid-sized consulting firm where I've worked for almost 9 years. I don't make waves. I don't gossip in the break room or compete for attention. I've built a reputation on being dependable, detail-oriented, and, apparently, invisible. My manager, Henry Cross, is what you'd expect in a place like ours. Tall. Confident. Wears cologne you can smell from the elevator. The kind of guy who makes everyone feel like they're in on the joke, even if you're the punchline. And he's smart. He knows how to make executives like him. He also knows how to spot someone like me, someone who will do 90% of the work, quietly, and let him present it like it's his. I let him do it for a long time. Because I thought that's how you move up. I thought, eventually, people will notice who's really making the difference. I thought, maybe it doesn't matter if I'm the one standing in front of the room, as long as the work speaks for itself. But the work never gets to speak. Only people do. A few months ago, we were deep into a massive pitch for a new healthcare client. I'd been leading the strategy, handling the competitive research, the frameworks, the analysis, the narrative arc. Henry, meanwhile, would pop in, throw out a half-relevant buzzword, and say things like, "We need more blue in the visuals." Blue is trust. Still, I put my head down and pushed through. For 6 weeks, I worked late almost every night. The pitch deck ballooned to 70 slides. I built it like a machine, every section tight, every point anchored in data. I poured myself into it. Then came the presentation. I wasn't even invited to the main pitch. Henry told me they wanted to streamline the room. Said I'd done enough heavy lifting. I sat in my office while he delivered my work, and I tried not to care. That's when it happened. My phone buzzed with an incoming call, from my sister, Bryn. I meant to silence it, but I must have answered it instead. I shoved it in my coat pocket and stepped out to grab a coffee. Unknowingly, the call stayed connected. And Bryn, miles away in Pittsburgh, heard everything. When I came back, she was still on the line. "Marissa," she said. "Are you there? You accidentally called me." I pulled the phone from my pocket, confused. "Wait, what?" "I heard something," she said. "Were you in a meeting?" My chest tightened. "Someone, I think it was a guy, said something about you being good at making slides look pretty? Is that about you?" I didn't answer. Because it was about me. Henry had said it, right after taking full credit for the strategy. And everyone in the room laughed. That kind of smooth, complicit laugh people do when they don't want to challenge the person in power. I hung up the phone. I closed my laptop. I sat in my office for 10 full minutes, just staring at the wall. That night, I couldn't sleep. I didn't cry. I didn't scream into a pillow or call HR. I just lay there, eyes open, thinking. I thought about every weekend I worked, every Sunday night I spent building decks while Otto snored beside me. I thought about how long I'd been undervalued, how many times Henry had nodded at my work in meetings like I was some assistant who made things look nice. I thought about the partner at a boutique firm in Seattle who'd emailed me last year asking if I was open to freelancing. I hadn't been then. But I was now. The next day, I took my name off the official version of the deck. I exported my original. I attached a brief note explaining the strategy in plain terms, its applications, scalability, risk profile. I hit send. The boutique partner replied within 2 hours. She loved the work. Wanted to talk that week. Said they'd been looking for someone with exactly this kind of mind. I didn't tell anyone. I still went to work. I nodded in meetings. I even sent Henry a follow-up email congratulating him on the pitch. 2 weeks later, I signed a 6-month consulting agreement with the Seattle firm. More money. More autonomy. Real credit. I didn't confront Henry. I just handed in my notice the following Monday with a simple line, "Thank you for the opportunities. I've accepted another position." He was caught off guard. His mouth made a little twitch when he read the letter. "You're sure?" he asked. "I am. You know, things are really about to pick up around here. You could be in a great position." "I think I already am," I said. He nodded, trying to hold on to his usual confidence. But I could see the crack in his expression, the moment he realized I wasn't bluffing. That I was actually walking away with the golden goose he'd been claiming as his own. Later that week, the Seattle firm announced the win of a major healthcare client. The press release was flattering. It praised the innovative strategy of their new consultant. The same one I'd built in that quiet Chicago office while everyone else was talking over me. My old colleagues noticed. One sent me a screenshot of the article with the message, "This is your work, right?" I just sent back a smiley face. There was something oddly quiet about the weeks that followed. Not just in my life, in my head, too. For the first time in years, I wasn't grinding toward the next deliverable. I wasn't cleaning up someone else's mess or prepping talking points for a presentation I wouldn't be allowed to give. I started waking up before my alarm. Not from anxiety, but from peace. The Seattle role was remote, so I worked from my apartment. It's nothing fancy, a 2-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a walk-up that shakes when the train goes by. But it's mine. Every morning, I'd make coffee, sit by the window with Otto tucked at my feet, and think, this is mine, too. I was finally being seen for the mind I'd spent years developing. And strangely, that validation didn't feel like a reward, it felt like relief. Like something that should have been there all along. Bryn called more often now. We started talking twice a week. At first, it was just to check in. Then it became routine. Somehow, in this weird fallout of office betrayal, my relationship with her started healing. "I still think you should have punched him," she joked once, meaning Henry. "I'm not built for punching," I replied. "I'm built for pulling the rug out while they're mid-strut." We both laughed. And it felt real. But just because I'd moved on didn't mean I was fully over it. You see, the thing no one tells you about walking away quietly is that it makes people curious. Especially men like Henry. He was used to people being mad, petty, reactive. Silence? Silence makes them nervous. 3 weeks after I left, I got an email from him. No subject line. Just, "Hope you're well. Would love to catch up sometime, coffee?" I stared at it for a long time. I even hovered over reply for a few seconds. But what was there to say? That I'd finally learned not to let someone shrink my worth down to aesthetics and polish? That I'd found more satisfaction in 1 month of real recognition than I had in 9 years of playing second fiddle? No. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to Bryn. She replied instantly. "Block him. Ghost of mediocrity past." It made me laugh. But more than that, it grounded me. Because I knew, if the roles were reversed, I'd be telling her the same. Still, something tugged at me. Guilt. Not about leaving. Not about taking the work. But about how easily it was all exposed. How fragile Henry's version of leadership really was. All it took was me stepping away for the illusion to crumble. And somehow, even after everything, part of me felt bad. That's the thing no one prepares you for when you finally stand up for yourself. You think you'll feel powerful. And you do. But you also feel the ache of old habits, the need to make things okay for everyone else. Especially the ones who wronged you. And that's when it hit me, I'd spent so much of my adult life managing other people's comfort. Even my divorce was quiet. No yelling, no blame. Just a mutual acknowledgement of distance. It's not working. No, it's not. Done. But this time I wasn't going to soften the impact. I wasn't going to shrink myself to fit what made Henry or anyone else feel safe. Still, I wasn't vindictive. That came from my father. He'd taught me, unintentionally, what it looked like when someone built themselves by breaking others down. My father was the kind of man who'd point out the one light bulb you didn't change, instead of thanking you for cleaning the whole garage. Who'd walk into the kitchen after dinner and say, "You used too much salt," even if it was the best meal you'd made in months. Henry reminded me of him in more ways than I liked to admit. The condescension. The performative compliments. The need to feel superior without doing the work. And maybe, on some subconscious level, that's why I stayed in that job so long. Maybe I was trying to prove something, to Henry, to men like my father, to myself. That I could be enough even without the spotlight. But now, standing in the light of my own making, I wasn't trying to prove anything. I just wanted to keep going. The boutique firm flew me out to Seattle in April. Not for onboarding, just to meet the team, grab dinner, and talk about their longer-term plans. It was casual, but intentional. They wanted me to know I wasn't just filling a gap, I was building something with them. The flight back was quiet. I stared out the window, watching the city disappear beneath me, and thought, this is the first time I feel like my work has a home. Back in Evanston, the days started feeling longer in the best way. I finally had time to read books again. To walk auto before the sun went down. To think about who I was beyond my output. But of course, the universe isn't always so kind. About a month after I started the new role, I got a message from one of the few friends I still had at the Chicago office. Let's call her Roya. She and I had worked together on several projects. Smart, no nonsense, the kind of woman who keeps her head down but remembers everything. She was the closest thing I had to a confidant in that place. Her message read, "So, Henry tried to pitch the new pharma client last week using a recycled version of your strategy. Didn't go well. They asked questions he couldn't answer." The room turned fast. He looked stunned. Like he genuinely believed he could fake it without you. I didn't know what to feel. It wasn't joy. It wasn't pity. It was confirmation. That I'd done the right thing. That I was never wrong about my worth, only about the place I'd been giving it to. When I put my phone down after reading Roya's message, I just sat there. I didn't text back right away. I didn't rush to tell Bryn. I didn't do anything for a full 10 minutes except sit on the edge of my bed with Otto curled up beside me and breathe. There's a strange kind of grief in realizing how long you let yourself be underestimated. Even stranger when you see the person who took advantage of that struggling in your absence, not because they failed, but because they never really understood the value of what they had. That night, I pulled up the original project files. Not because I missed it. Not because I doubted my choices. But because I needed to see it one more time, that silent testament to everything I had quietly carried. Slide by slide, I remembered the hours I spent debating how to frame certain insights. The way I fought the instinct to over-explain. How I made it digestible, persuasive, bulletproof, and how easily Henry had passed it off as his own. It wasn't rage I felt. It was something quieter. Sadder. A sense of mourning for the woman who thought she had to stay small in order to survive. I closed the laptop, turned off the lights, and decided not to open that deck again. The next morning, Bryn called me early. "Tell me you've seen this." "What?" "Check your email. And text. And Slack, if you still have Slack. It's all over LinkedIn. They're spiraling." I rubbed my eyes, still half asleep. Otto snorted under the blankets, unimpressed by the urgency. I pulled up my phone and saw a string of messages. 2 from Roya, 1 from an old coworker I barely remembered, and even one from a senior exec I'd always assumed had no idea I existed. The LinkedIn post was from someone I'd met only briefly at a conference. She worked for a different division but was well respected. Her post was carefully worded, not aggressive, not even really specific, but she was talking about Henry. Everyone could tell. It's always fascinating when someone builds their entire leadership persona on borrowed brilliance, and then loses all direction the second their quiet rock star leaves. Funny how credit only takes you so far without competence. The comments were flooded with people reading between the lines. I read it twice. 3 times. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called my ex-husband. There was no bitterness between us, not anymore. We'd grown apart more than we'd fought. Our marriage had ended with a whisper, not a bang. But he was one of the few people who had seen what years of playing small had done to me. And some part of me wanted him to see what had changed. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, everything okay?" I laughed softly. "Yeah. Everything's fine. Actually, everything's kind of good." There was a pause. "Wow. I haven't heard that in your voice in a long time." We talked for 20 minutes, about work, life, Otto. He was dating someone new. I wasn't, and that didn't bother me. Not anymore. Before we hung up, he said, "I'm really glad you're finding your own space, Marissa." And for the first time in years, I believed that someone wasn't just saying that to be nice. They were saying it because it was true. Later that week, I booked a flight to visit Bryn. She'd been asking me to come out for months, and I finally had the flexibility to say yes. We spent the weekend drinking too much boxed wine and eating Thai food on her patio while her dog tried to hump Otto and failed spectacularly. At one point, we sat under string lights, barefoot, and she looked at me and said, "You're different." In a good way. "I feel different," I said. "Like I've finally stopped waiting to be picked." Bryn nodded, serious for once. "You were always picked. You just didn't know you were the one picking yourself." She has a way of saying things that are both ridiculous and profound, like fortune cookies with caffeine. But that one stuck. You don't have to wait to be chosen. You can choose yourself. You can leave the room. You can take your name off something. You can rebuild your reputation somewhere no one's trying to edit you down. But life, of course, doesn't always let you escape that cleanly. The following Monday, Roya messaged again. "Just a heads up. Henry's asking around for a new consultant. Apparently mentioned you by name in a meeting. Said something like, if we could get her back in some capacity, I'm not sure what he's planning, but I wanted you to know. It might be about ego. Or damage control. Or both." I didn't respond immediately. I went for a long walk instead. Past the lake, down by the trail that wraps around Northwestern's campus. The air was still cold, the kind of chill that reminds you spring is trying, but winter still has a grip. I thought about what I'd say if Henry ever actually called me. Would I hang up? Would I listen? Would I tell him exactly what he cost me, and what I gained in spite of it? And more importantly, would I owe him anything? No. Not even a reply. Because here's the truth people don't say out loud, especially in corporate culture: walking away without a scene isn't weakness. It's power. It's choosing peace over performance. It's understanding your value so deeply that you no longer need it validated by people who failed to see it in the first place. Still, part of me wondered. Would he call? Would he actually admit what happened? Would I be able to keep my voice even if he did? Henry didn't call. At least, not right away. Maybe he was circling. Waiting for the dust to settle, waiting for the embarrassment to fade, waiting for a moment when he could reach out without seeming desperate. Men like him don't apologize, they negotiate. They reframe. They angle for optics. And when the story starts to slip out of their hands, they scramble to take back the narrative. About 6 weeks after Roya's warning, I got an email. Short. Polished. Manipulative in the way only seasoned managers can write. "Hi Marissa, hope things are going well with your new role, we've heard great things. I was wondering if you'd be open to a quick chat this week. There's a potential opportunity coming up with one of our legacy clients, and your insights would be incredibly valuable." totally informal, just 15 minutes to catch up. Let me know if you're interested. Best, Henry. No apology. No acknowledgement. No recognition of what he'd done. Just a casual catch-up, like we were old colleagues reconnecting over coffee, not former collaborators whose entire dynamic had been built on extraction and silence. I sat with the email for a full day before replying. When I finally did, I kept it brief. Hi Henry, appreciate the note. I'm fully booked through the quarter and have ongoing commitments with clients outside your firm. Best of luck with the upcoming opportunities. Regards, Marissa. I hit send and leaned back in my chair. It felt good. Clean. Complete. But apparently, Henry wasn't done. 2 days later, I got another email, this time, from a partner at the firm. A woman I'd always respected but never known well. She was more discreet than Henry, but the intent was the same. They wanted my help. Specifically, they wanted to bring me in as an external consultant to help recover a major account that was on the verge of leaving. The client had noticed that the work lacked depth and clarity compared to what they'd seen during the original pitch, the one I created. The irony was almost too much to bear. I asked for details, purely out of curiosity. And when I saw the client's name, a healthcare provider I'd spent weeks researching, I almost laughed. It was the same one that Henry had landed by passing off my work as his. Now they wanted me to come back and fix what he'd broken. But this time, I had the power. I scheduled a call with the partner. Not Henry. I was firm about that. The partner was polite, professional, and more than a little sheepish. She danced around the reasons for my departure. She acknowledged that the firm had room to grow and how it recognized contributions. And then she offered me a very generous consulting rate. I took a breath and said, before I agree to anything, I want one thing clarified. Of course, she said. What's that? I want it explicitly stated, in writing, that I'll be credited as the lead strategist. That I will present the work directly to the client. And that Mr. Cross will not be involved in any capacity. There was a pause. Then she said, understood. That can be arranged. I signed the contract 2 days later. When I walked into the meeting, virtually, of course, the client remembered me immediately. Their project lead said, "Oh, you were the one behind the original plan, weren't you? We always wondered why you didn't present." I just smiled and said, timing is everything. The new strategy one presented was tighter, more adaptive. It didn't just fix the old problems, it anticipated future ones. The client was thrilled. The account was secured. And I was very well compensated for it. Weeks later, Roya called. "You're not going to believe this," she said, trying not to laugh. "Henry's been repositioned." Repositioned? Yeah. Not fired. But he's not managing any strategy teams anymore. They're calling it a realignment of leadership focus. He's basically in a sales-adjacent role now. Not client-facing. I nodded slowly. It wasn't revenge in the way people imagine it. There were no shouting matches. No courtroom dramas. No takedowns. It was cleaner than that. The man who once said I was just good at making slides look pretty was now sidelined while I took the credit, the fees, and the spotlight, the one he'd tried to keep for himself. And all I did was quietly take my work, my name, and my dignity, and walk away. The fallout happened on its own. That summer, Brain came to visit me in Seattle. We rented a cabin for the weekend and brought both dogs. They fought over the same toy for hours and passed out in a tangle of paws by the fire. Over dinner one night, Bryn raised a glass. "To the best revenge," she said. "What's that?" I asked. "Being so damn good they have no choice but to come back, and realizing you're too far ahead for it to matter." We clinked glasses. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I had nothing left to prove. Not to Henry. Not to my past. Not even to myself.